Hello. Today I'm going to be talking about how nutrition affects mental health. So, we've frequently been taught that diet and exercise are an important part of life. Nowadays, we've even been talking about how taking care of our mental health is just as important as taking care of our physical health. To the extent that we've even been talking about how deeply physical and mental health can actually affect one another. But one thing we haven't really touched on is how does nutrition affect mental health? Today I'm going to be discussing nutrition first, and then we're going to talk about diet and exercise and its relationship to physical health. Then we're going to be discussing physical health in relation to mental health. Then we are going to talk about mental health and its effect on physical health. Then we'll go on ahead and wrap up with nutrition and how it directly affects mental health. Nutrition is definitely a huge subject, and people spend many years studying nutrition. It's something that varies upon culture to culture. However, at the end of the day, human bodies require a variety of things. One thing to touch on is the difference between food and nutrition. So we often have a lot of different foods in our environments, especially in our modern Western culture. We have a lot of things, similar things that you could see here, especially fast food. However, one thing that we're talking about now is nutrition. So we're talking about different, obviously, calories and things like that that are needed to sustain life. However, what actually brings value to life? Food or nutrition? As a society, we've stereotyped fat as being negative. However, without it, we'd be unable to store crucial supplies of certain vitamins or have a functioning immune system, according to Pappas. One thing of note is that we do have a huge vocabulary definition for fat. It's fat cells. It's a descriptor. It's, people use it for a wide variety of things. First of all, we're going to talk about fat as a fat cell. A lot of us know that we do have fat cells in our body, but we don't necessarily know what they do. So this right here is actually a fat cell. If you look here, you can see that it has a lot of different things going on here. Again, this is huge. This is not what they look like in real life. If they do look like this, then it's a whole nother story. Um, the way it is set up here, as you can see, all of these different parts around the cell, and these are traditionally the things that we would find in a cell. If you remember in school, the different plant versus animal cells, things that we did, um, the thing of note in here is this fat reservoir here. So this is what we would consider fat, like the commercials where they show all the nasty yellow goo and stuff. This is what's in there. So we have a reservoir, and like Papa says here, is that they were once thought to be rather dull sacks of energy, and we just called upon them when we needed them, when we were, running low on fuel or something, and we needed to fuel our bodies. However, the past few decades, they've done a lot of research, and we've been learning that these cells actually regulate a lot of hormones. They influence blood pressure, thyroid function, and even reproduction. So we might not think of them in a great manner, but they do a lot of her wonderful things in our body. The next thing of note is back into the relation to the food versus nutrition thing. We do have a thing called a nutrition transition going on. That's basically saying there is such thing as skinny fat. Growing up, I had a friend who is very small and petite, and her and I had very different body structures. I was more on the like heavier side or a curvy side, depending on how you word it nowadays. Where she was always very petite, and she would get quote unquote skinny shamed a lot, whereas I would quote unquote get fat shamed a lot. However, we hung out almost every day, so we were doing a lot of the same things. We were eating the same things. We were had the same activity, and we were the same age. However, one thing of note here is saying that Even obesity raises, underweight persists, even within the same household. So, for example, me and my friend, however, because of everything's going on with the Western lifestyle, we're actually having this thing called the skinny fat. So some people can still be just as malnutritious as other folks. Next subject we're going to talk about is diet and exercise and how it relates to physical health. A lot of people don't know, but that fat cells can actually grow and shrink dramatically. They can change inside by up to 50%. No matter how much weight you lose, the number of fat cells in your body will likely never actually decrease. That's kind of an astounding factor to think about because people work so hard to lose weight. They diet, they exercise, they go on all kinds of fad diets. Some people even get surgeries. And when you think about it, the amount of fat cells will likely never decrease, possibly in the surgery aspect because they're actually physically removing them. However, if you just lose the weight, you're just shrinking your fat cells. People who struggle with obesity compared to people as a quote unquote healthy weight are at a risk for a wide variety of diseases. We've heard it a lot growing up. Um, Starting at the most extreme is death. We do have high blood pressure, high cholesterol, diabetes, heart disease, stroke, um, bone problems, sleep apnea problems, and breathing problems. These are all things that we've heard before and all growing up our lives. However, they don't necessarily put into how much effect it has on a low quality of life or on mental illness such as depression, anxiety, and other mental disorders. A thing of note here is also general body pain and difficulty with physical functioning. And this is from the CDC as of 2021. The next thing that we're going to touch on is physical health and mental health and how they relate to each other. We are well aware that physical health and mental health do go kind of hand in hand, but we don't always necessarily know why. In this specific sample, according to my research, we've noted that serotonin, which is a neurotransmitter that helps regulate sleep, appetite, and mediate moods and inhibit pain. Serotonin is basically the happy chemical in your brain. It does all of these things that they said. Um, The next thing of note is that about 95% of your serotonin is actually produced in your gastrointestinal tract. That means your insides and your digestive function. So within there is 100 million nerve cells or neurons. So all that being said, it makes sense that the inner workings of your digestive system don't just help you digest food, but actually also guide your emotions. This is from Dr. E.S. in 2020. The next thing that we're going to discuss is how mental health affects physical health. This one is a huge, huge subject, and we could spend way more time than we actually have on this subject. To start off, we'll just start with depression because that's the most common mental health issue depression and anxiety is one of the most common mental health issues that we face in America. So just the depression alone effects on the body, insomnia, headaches, fatigue, chronic pain, diarrhea, constipation, those two off the bat sound like digestion. Inflammation, this could be like in your joints. Loss of libido, that goes into the reproduction factor that we talked about earlier. Weight loss or gain, nausea, your stomach, digestive, and increased risk of heart disease. All of these sound remarkably similar to what I was just talking about with the effects of obesity on the body. This is the effect of depression on the body. Mental health is also influenced by an individual's unique biochemistry. This aspect, let's pull over on it because it's kind of important. This is where people are talking about we need to be self-medicating, or we do go medicate through psychiatric and different other things in order to try to help our biochemistry in our brain. This PowerPoint is not to negate the effects of your own personal biochemistry, but to touch on the aspects of how your nutrition can actually affect your biochemistry, which can actually help your depression. So the blood chemistry of patients may reveal that they have too much or too little of a specific vitamin, mineral, amino acid, or essential fatty acid, and that this nutritional imbalance affects the level and activity of the neurotransmitters. This goes back to the serotonin happy juice thing we just talked about. This can result and manifest in individual as depression, anxiety, bipolar disease, schizophrenia, or other mental illness. This is a lot and it's very wordy, so let's pull over to explain really quick. Biochemistry, like we talked about, is the happy juice and other things that produce in your brain. We are well aware of the research that we've done in the last several decades that every person's biochemistry is unique, whether it's genetic, environmental, whether it's a product of trauma that's built up in your system. For example, your fight or flight that emits a whole bunch of hormones into your body and different chemicals and try to induce a different reaction or lack of reaction in a survival mechanism. Over time, these chemicals can build up and build up into your body. So there's lots of different things that go into mental health. Mental health. We are aware of this. However, this specifically is talking about how vitamins, minerals, amino acids, and essential fatty acids can affect the imbalance in your brains. This is very interesting because a lot of these words that they use right here, vitamin, mineral, amino acid, or essential fatty acids, are a lot of things that you hear people talk about when they're talking about the caloric intake or they're talking about their nutritional value and factors and things like that. So it's very interesting to see that Culvert in 2017 was linking these specific parts of biochemistry with the neurotransmitters and mental health. This brings us to the conclusion of our show. Nutrition does directly affect mental health. The study of nutrition and cognitive development requires expertise from several disciplines. In what follows, the concept of nutritional effects on brain development is explored. From prenatal to postnatal development, optimal nutrition support is vital to the development of cognitive abilities, according to Cheatham in 2017. This is the end all be all of this. Um, of course, multiple things go into determining what he's calling as cognitive abilities, which also could directly affect your mental health. Because again, your brain is the powerhouse. It has all the chemicals. It tells your body when to make the chemicals for the whole rest of your body, as well as when it does the neurotransmitters and puts your serotonin, aka your happy juice, in your brain. So we in this specific study they had to go talk to a lot of neurologists, they had to talk to blood people, nutrition people, they had to talk to so many different scientists and psychologists and psychiatrists and all of these different things in order to study how the nutritional affects the brain development. This study was even saying that from prenatal to postnatal, so that's prenatal as in before you're born and after you're born, all of these things directly affect your body and they definitively directly impact your brain. And that being said, nutrition most definitely directly affects mental health. Just for your personal reference, we do have a lot of my personal references here. We talked to the Center for Disease Control and Prevention, Carol L. Cheatham, Cottier, C. Cottier, S. Coulter, Lee L. Culvert, T.H. Harvard, and E.S. Thank you very much.